Political correctness is a figure of speech today on Talk for Two. Hey everyone, Matt Bailey here. I want to give a quick shout out to our season sponsors, Axtel Expressions and the Tangent Bound Network, before we begin. You'll hear more about them at the end of the show. Now, I'm so glad we are finally at this week because it is a 2-episode week to bring in August. That's the new month we're in. July was convention month. Excuse me. Today, we chat with ventriloquist, comedian, and figure maker Mike Palma. All you vents out there know his beautiful figure work from his company and, of course, the Facebook group Ventriloquist Workshop. His most well-known character is Facetious, the Chinese prophet Confucius's brother. Now, Palma works with Facetious and others in comedy clubs and corporate shows all over Florida. And as the take on an Asian character suggests, Mike does not mind bending the rules of political correctness, something we both agree is destroying comedy. Now, here now, with an interview that includes, for those of you that may not be aware of this, Ventriloquist Workshop's role in the origins of this very program, our interview with Mike Palma. Mike Palma, welcome to Talk for Two. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on here, Matt.
Absolutely. Thanks for doing this. Let's get started. The question I like to ask all my guests, especially the first-time guests, how did you get started in ventriloquism?
Oh, probably very, very young. I think I have a picture. It's probably about 3 or 4 years old, holding my very first Simon Says. The picture is me and my father. He has an old Mortimer Snerd-looking figure, full-size figure, on his lap, and he was always into magic and ventriloquism, and I fell in love with both of those. But for some reason, I always liked the ventriloquism a little bit better than the magic. It was just something different. You didn't get to see that often, so I just thought it was more of a unique novelty than just magic.
Yeah, so when did you start performing? And did you start with magic first or vent?
I have always done combination of the two.
So when did you start performing? Was it magic first or was it vent?
I probably got interested in both at the same time. My father, when I was very young, was into magic and ventriloquism. And I think I have a picture of me and him, me sitting on his knee. I look like a little dummy, but I'm holding a little Simon Says, and he's holding in his other arm a full-size Mortimer Snerd look-alike that he got, I think, from Tannins or Al Flosso's up in New York many, many moons ago. So I've always been interested in magic and ventriloquism, but I kind of gravitated toward more ventriloquism because there was just something unique about it, different than just doing the same tricks everybody else is doing.
Yes, but to this day in your shows, you still do. I was watching some clips online. It's a combination of magic and ventriloquism.
Yes, I do in my show stand-up comedy. I do ventriloquism and comedy magic, and I layer them so it's just a little bit of stand-up in the beginning to kind of warm up the crowd. Then I start off with a little bit of ventriloquism into some magic, more ventriloquism, more magic, and end with ventriloquism. And it just kind of makes it more like a show. So it's not just all one thing, pulling puppets constantly out of a trunk. It just adds to a little more variety on my show.
Yeah, I think it's good to break it up. Now, when you're putting a show together, how do you determine where a trick will fall after a character? What kind of trick to perform after a specific puppet?
Well, basically, I just try to figure out, first of all, I have to figure out what my age group is. I perform in comedy clubs. The comedy clubs will send me into casinos, and that may be a whole different age population than a comedy club. And then I do retirement communities. And when I say retirement community, I'm not talking about like nursing homes or, assisted livings, even though I have done shows like that. But I'm talking about 55 and over retirement communities where these people are very, very active. And once again, the magic and ventriloquism is kind of tailored to the audience, the age. So what I do in a nightclub is going to be similar but different than what I might do at the retirement community. I mean, there's always adjustments they have to make.
Yeah, I'm assuming, of course, that the retirement community is a little cleaner.
You would think that. To a degree, yes, though. But they do like risque. They like squeaky clean, which I can give them, but they do like risque. Risque, without being dirty, is very, very fun to do.
Yeah, do you think the activity booker, has the activity booker ever kind of told you keep it squeaky clean, keep it squeaky clean, and then you get there and you realize they want to go up to that line?
Yes, I have performed for a number of groups that perform. They hold their meetings. Maybe if it's not in a recreation center, rec center, they may have it in one of the big churches. And going into a church, I'm kind of like, keep it clean. Don't need a lightning bolt during my show. But basically, even if the audience does want it a little dirty or a little risque, I've made a commitment to the person who is paying me, who booked me, to keep it squeaky clean, and I will.
Yeah, it's important to please the person who books you. Has it ever happened where there's a discrepancy between what they book and what you do, and they're not happy?
I've never had that happen. I have had a guy call me up and say, "Oh, you're going to be here Tuesday for your show," and I look at my calendar and I can't find it anywhere in my calendar. I'm like going, "Oh my God, I must have forgot to write this one down." And and I show up to the show and there's another magician setting up. And it happened to be a good friend of mine named Brian LaPalm, and for some reason I performed for this club once before, and they had my name as Mike Palma, and so we both showed up. And I said, "Listen," I said, "you let Brian, you book show. It was a big mistake. They called the wrong person at the wrong time." but I did get a booking out of that, so everything worked out fine. But that's about the only discrepancy I ever had. But everybody's always been pleased with the show, and that's what it's all about.
That's great. Now we're going to go back to the beginnings of your interest in figure making. And before you answer that question, I want to tell everybody, we talked about this at the beginning, but I want to throw it in here again, ventriloquistworkshop.com. Some awesome figures from Mike Palma. When did you realize that you had the talent for making them as well?
It came when I was probably about 18 years old and wanted to buy a ventriloquist figure and couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So I said, I think I can do this. And I saw some of the figures that people were making. I saw some of the old Finnis, later Finnis Robinson figures, and I'm thinking, I think I can do a little bit better than that one. He did do some nice figures early on, but I saw some of the old Howie Olsen ones, and I said, I think I can do better than that. And that just kind of motivated me to give it a try.
Mm-hmm. When did you realize you had a knack for it, though? When did you realize, hey, I'm really good at it? Because you are. And it's always triple threats, good writers, good ventriloquists, and great builders are rare in this business. And you are all three of them.
Thank you.
I'm not just saying I mean that. So when did you realize that this was something you could make figures and sell them and do that as well?
Probably 7 years after I figured out how to make them. I've had a lot of coaching, a lot of tutoring from a lot of great figure makers who critiqued my work and said, "You want to try this and that, and paint and look at symmetry and look at asymmetry." And I mean, there have been so many people out there in this ventriloquist community that have helped me out so much. Mm-hmm. That how did you know you had the knack? Well, I made one, and it wasn't that it was the best one, but I enjoy doing it. And then the more you make them and the more tips you get from these other figure makers, the better you become. It's just like anything else. It's like ventriloquism. The more you do it, the better you get. Same thing with figure making.
Do you have a favorite figure you made for somebody?
Favorite figure I've made for somebody? No, I don't think so. I enjoy making them, and there have been a couple times I've made one and go, "Oh, I don't want to mail him off," but I want that figure out there working rather than sitting in my my shop just collecting dust.
Yeah. And you make one that at least did you make him? I don't want to make any assumptions. Did you make Facetious?
I did not. No. A couple of years back, I had a coworker I was working with, and I was doing the ventriloquism, and he saw my show, and we were coming up with ideas, and I had an idea for a Chinese character, but my friend actually came up with the name. He says, "Why don't you call him, he could be Confucius's twin brother. Instead of Confucius, his name's Confucius." Mm-hmm. With that name, the routine kind of almost wrote itself, because he's just like, of course, like a smart aleck, but also he has a very innocent look on his face, and I bring him out, people just laugh. The character is incredible. But no, I did not build him.
Yeah, he's. I love him, and I remember that you did him last year. You performed him last year at Vent Haven, and
I did build Little Buddha though.
Yes.
The little the little guy. I did build him.
Yeah, it's such a that routine killed. That's
Oh, thank you.
And I bring it up because, especially last year at the convention, but it's so important because it's one of the least often talked about things in ventriloquism, and I think in comedy in general, is political correctness.
Right.
He's not the most politically correct character in the world, but he still works.
It's political correctness is per person.
Yeah.
Okay. What may be politically correct for you may not be for another one, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Murphy, Eddie Murphy's brother, said this. I met him last year at the Orlando Improv, and he was being interviewed. And they asked him, "Was comedy as good as it used to be?" And he said, "No." And he goes, "Well, why not?" He says, "Political correctness is killing comedy." And I tend to agree, because comedy is poking fun. It's satire. It's making fun of things that we're all afraid to say. We're picking on certain taboos. I mean, some of the guys early on, Buddy Hackett and some of these guys, they were all politically incorrect. Don Rickles, politically incorrect. But we're not doing it in mean-spirited. We're doing it in joking around, and as long as you let the audience know that it's humor. We have a release, and I don't do anything that's I would call racist or anything like that. I imagine somebody else might. But I actually performed for an Asian group in the retirement community, and they absolutely loved him. I had people wanting pictures with him. They said it looked like his uncle and whatever. But once again, I have found out that the only people who really have a problem with him being politically correct or non-politically correct are the uptight people who are just uptight about everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so important. I mean, what can we do to stop this? I say he's not the most politically correct character because I agree with what you said is per person, and as long as it's not offensive and not racist, which of course your character isn't. And what can we do to stop this train wreck of just you can't say this, you can't say that, from completely destroying any form of humorous arts?
I would say just stop watching the news, because I honestly think there is some type of agenda to turn everybody against each other some way or another. And, I probably sound like a goofball or wacko now, but I mean, basically all this has started through media. They take one thing and they put their own spin on it, and that's how it becomes nationalism. Like this whole thing with the Confederate flag right now. It's been flying all these years. I mean, I don't care either way. It's not my issue. Mm-hmm. But it's amazing to me that a kid who had definitely had a mental disorder and killed people was wearing that around his neck. And if he did have an issue, how it went from this poor guy with mental issue or just the way he was raised, once again, the spotlight's now being taken off him and more to a symbol, which is a flag. And people say, "Well, got to get rid of this, get rid of it." Well, the flag didn't do anything. It was the guy who did something. Let's blame the guy. Let's blame the guy who raised this guy. I just think that everybody is getting too thin-skinned, and if they don't like it, let's get rid of it. Let's get rid of it. And it's just becoming, I think, the overall undertone of everything in this country is if we don't like it, let's make a big deal about it and get rid of it. So, it is a fine line, but I think in order to stop it, I mean, stop listening to the media. And the media is just a monster.
Yeah, it's you can't let the outside factors. You have to find what is funny to you and go for it.
Right, exactly. I had to tell you a funny story because I tried out for America's Got Talent and waited 12 hours to do 90 seconds. Two comics went on before me. I went up with facetious, did my routine. I had the other comics laughing. I felt like I nailed my 90 seconds. Well, after waiting all this time, the judge is there and stands up and says to the other two guys, "You didn't make it into we'll be getting in contact with you." I never heard from them after that. They actually about a month ago they wanted another video, but I left the building, and my wife says, "Well, how did you do?" I said, "I nailed it, except for one thing." She was with that. I said, "If anything is going to kill me," I said, "my judge was a female Asian woman," and she's probably going to write me off. So, but I imagine it was kind of once you can. That's the way I look at it.
Hang on, Mike, you're breaking up.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, it's no different than playing a part in a movie. We're acting, and we're not doing anything that an actor wouldn't do.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, I think as soon as you become overly sensitive and forget that it's humor, you completely lose sight of being able to create anything.
Right.
Exactly. So,
exactly.
And one of the venues that you work the most are comedy clubs. We were talking about that earlier, and you're booked solid into all of these comedy clubs in Florida. Where is the line in the comedy clubs? What's pushing it for them?
Well, I don't perform really blue. I usually don't cuss. I try to keep the show as family friendly as possible. Like I said, there may be some risque jokes or play on words, but I try to keep the show as family friendly as possible because sometimes a family will bring children to these clubs. Mm-hmm. But I think if you keep the character true to the character rather than going after the racial factor, I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say. Like I said, I just try to. I kind of follow Jeff Dunham's rule. Jeff has a rule. Just be goofy, have fun, and be goofy. If it makes you laugh and it makes your audience laugh, that's all we're trying to do is make you laugh. I mean, he would have been crucified for Ahmed the Dead Terrorist, but he turned out to be the number one strong figure for his act now.
Yeah.
And I love that act. I love his figures, all of them.
They're really cool. Now, moving away from just the political correctness aspect of it, but back to you performing, what made you want to do the comedy club market?
I kind of got the bucket list. I was doing a lot of retirement communities, and the comedian had seen me perform and said, "Hey, would you like to work clubs?" I was like, "Yeah, I'd give it a shot," and did not know if my show would carry over in the comedy clubs. And probably the first show was really good, and a couple of shows after that, only had to modify for different ages because you get younger clientele in there. You got to be a little more on the risque and sometimes get a little blue, but I try to avoid that. Mm-hmm. But when you're looking at the people above 30, 35, they don't appreciate all the foul language, and they're looking to go out on a Friday or Saturday night, have a good time and laugh. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the big things I get booked a lot more because I have a clean act. I've had people say, "We want to come see your show. Are you dirty?" "No." "How about the act before you?" "Well, I can't promise you that he's not dirty." but that's the way it works.
Any booker worth his salt anyway will make sure that it's consistent in the rating of the material.
Say that again.
I said any booker worth his salt, would probably try to. I don't like that. I don't like when you go in and one comic spews the. Todd Oliver tells this story about Willie Tyler. I think I've told it on this show before. That Willie Tyler was set to headline a comedy club, and the comic that went up before him, was completely dirty and just really. But then Willie went up there and he got him back. He got him back with his clean act. And I was just remarking that any booker worth his salt would, book a consistent rating of the act, a G rating, PG rating, what have you. So, hopefully you've not had an experience where, the act before you is horribly dirty.
Yeah. I have a few feature acts that open up for me that I prefer to work with because we work really good together. I know what their act is, and it's always a great night when I work with those. Every now and then, sometimes you have to work hard to get the the crowd back. You get people on the feature act is real dirty and they start leaving. Some people get uncomfortable, and the nice thing about doing what I do is I can get them back with the comedy magic. I can get them back with the dummies. I can get them back with just some of the stand-up I do, just to, And the big thing is you have to make them feel comfortable right off the bat. If you gotta start building this relationship with them and get them hooked really quick, because if not, it's going to be a long night.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, anybody that follows you on social media, any listeners that are friends of yours on Facebook or follow you elsewhere, they would never guess that you have a day job because you're working all the time. You're a physical therapist. How does that work? You do that, but you're working. We were talking before we started recording. They'll sometimes fly you to different casinos and stuff. These bookings. How do you manage it?
Well, the casino jobs are usually just a couple of times a year, and usually they fly me out on a Friday. I do the show Saturday, and then Saturday morning I'm flying back home. Mm-hmm. It's really a quick trip. Luckily for me, I work 4.5 days a week. I work Monday through Thursday full time. Friday I work a half day. I'm out by noon, 1 o'clock. So that allows me time to get to the clubs. Most of the comedy clubs, when I first started getting into stand-up comedy, just doing open mic night, that was on back in the early 90s. A comedy club would have shows Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and even Sunday. But now, basically, you're lucky if you get a Friday and a Saturday with some of the clubs. But no, it works out really well, because if I get off work at 1, I get home, pack up the car, off I go for the weekend to do the shows. So, yeah, it is a lot of work. I mean, I'm working that 40-hour week in 4.5 days, and then I'm doing the shows, and then on my downtime, I'm spending time with family and getting into a workshop, and I have free time and working on figures and trying to get stuff out. So, I think anytime you have a passion for something, you're going to figure out how to do it.
Yeah. Very, very poignant statement. And that goes to the next question, which is figuring out how to do it. Do you think you'll ever jump in and do it full time?
I don't think so. I don't think the market for we talked about the political correctness and stuff like that. Now, the way comedies are going, I've seen a lot here in Florida clubs open up and close down. I don't think the money is there. Comedy clubs, everybody thinks that they're so luxurious. It must be great to work comedy clubs. You must be making big money. You're only making big money if you're a big, big name. You got to work your way. You got to work hard to get that name.
Yeah.
So I don't think I would ever, at this point in my life, maybe if I was younger, I would. But no, I kind of enjoy doing the way I'm doing now. Like, if I could afford to do that, sure. I mean, if I could work a cruise ship and make great money doing that, or if I could be like Fader and Dunham and have a casino room or something like that, yeah, that's different. But in all actuality and realistically, doing club shows, it's you can be in a beautiful comedy club one night, and the next one it will be a dive. Yeah. I have worked places, a comedy club. They love me. They have me back too much, and I only say that because it's like, guys, I'm running out of material. Yeah. But it's a great place. It's a great atmosphere. I love going there. They love seeing me when I come in. You start building these relationships with the patrons, and the problem is it doesn't have an air conditioner. It's a big warehouse with this giant fan. Mm-hmm. In the summertime, you are sweating on stage. I mean, you look like you just got off stage. It looks like you just entertained from a shower. You're just soaking wet. In the wintertime, not so bad. They close the doors. You're up there. You're moving around, and it's comfortable. But the summertimes in Florida, humidity, oh my goodness, it is brutal. Yeah. So, it's not as luxurious and glamorous as people think. I mean, I think if you were in some of the bigger places like New York City and some of the places where they have some really nice clubs, I imagine, but I'm sure they have the nice ones and they have the dives there also.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It runs the gamut. It's really. I was lucky. The club I got to perform in was really nice and run by people who appreciate clean comedy, which was my worry about going to New York. But it's great. I want to take it back to the figure making here for just a second. I have let me ask you this question and then I'll tell you a story. What's your one piece of advice for figure makers out there that want to do it?
buy my course on
Yes.
arrowstudios.com. That was, actually, and I say that tongue in cheek kind of, but actually that course actually teaches you from start to finish how to build a figure. And there's so much information that I share in those things that I've learned over years and years and years of making figures that, if I had the availability to have that course, a video course where you could stop, rewind, go back, whatever you do here, watch it at your earliest convenience, you could watch it on your cell phone, an iPad, your computer, whatever, I would have bought it back then. And I'm not just saying that to sell the product. I'm saying that because sometimes seeing how something is done is a lot easier than reading it. I'll give you an example. When I was growing up learning magic, and whether it was close-up magic or what have you, we didn't have videos. You had to read a book, and you're like, what do they mean by what's this double lift, and what's this out jog, and what is this multiple tilt? It didn't make sense. Then the video era came along, and all of a sudden you see this large explosion of close-up magicians, more than ever. Why? Because they're showing you on a videotape how to do exactly what they're trying to describe to you in a book, except it's much more detailed, and you're actually seeing how it's done. And same thing with figure making. I think if you see how it's done, all of a sudden it just opens up the door. At that point, all you have to do is create what kind of figure you want, and you know how to put the mechanics in, you know how to do everything.
No. Who was I talking to about this? I know this was an episode that was recent, but I was talking with somebody. I'll never forego the value of books, but video makes it so much easier to understand, because magic, as with building, is an inherently visual medium. It's a live medium, but it is a visual medium. And this is just the digital age. It's the reason podcasts like this can exist and other instructional videos can exist, or I'm sure there are other entertainers that in your specialized market there's a podcast that you listen to. It's the age of new media, and it's wonderful to jump on board with it. And I'm happy to see Ventriloquism doing it. So I'm glad that you brought up your course, because that's the next step in teaching everybody who has an interest in it.
It is. I mean, and Sammy King was very instrumental in teaching me something when I first met him. And he says, we have to teach the people who are younger than us, the kids coming up.
Yeah.
Technique, teach them this, teach them that, teach them how to build a figure. We have to give back, because there's so many people who are older than I am who gave to me. We have to keep this art alive, and we can only keep it alive by sharing.
Yeah. And speaking of sharing, I have a story to share with you that I don't know if our listeners are aware of, and I don't know if I ever told you this. But when you're kind of to blame for the podcast in a very roundabout way. The only group on Facebook at the time, very few groups at the time on Facebook for ventriloquism. Yours was the most popular. I was seeing all the posts, people posting in Ventriloquist Workshop.
Right.
And so I did the first episode. I figured out how to find a podcast host and did all of that. Excuse me. And I uploaded it at like midnight, or no, it was around 6:00. And I uploaded it and I posted it only in Ventriloquist Workshop, and I shut down everything, and I ran and hid in a corner and watched television for an hour. And then I came back, and I was like, any notifications at all? And people were saying, hey, we really enjoy this. Keep this up. So thank you for having that group for me to post this in, because it's been fun. And people should go check out that group, because there's a lot of great discussion on figure making and Ventriloquist Workshop.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's what the whole was meant to do. Was just to inspire and teach and help each other out. I mean, and that's what, magic, whatever, we're here to help people. And that's my goal. Save this art form. It's very important to me. It's very important to a lot of people out there. And the only way that it gets better is to share and teach and help. And because if you help somebody else, somebody's going to come along and help you out, and it goes hand in hand.
Yes, it certainly.
And I'm glad you found that. I know Conrad has got the World event up there now, and that's, I was always a big fan of the World event when it was just the Post, and now he's got that up there too. And I go on there, and you'll see different posts from different people in both different groups. So it's good to be part of both of those groups for sure.
Yeah, and well, he kind of caught on to the idea that the Facebook groups are the new Yahoo email groups.
Yeah, right.
So it's very streamlined. And nicer.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So.
And you can see what people are doing. Videos of people just starting out and asking for help or tips. Where the professionals say, "Hey, that's what I did at my show." Somebody just building a figure, or hey, can somebody help me with a joke or writing material or whatever? Yeah, people are always there to help out and give their 2 cents.
Yeah. So speaking of 2 cents, I want to ask our last question that I really like to wrap up with. What do you want to see from ventriloquists coming up today?
Creativity. Creativity. I've said this for a long time. It took us 50 or 60 years for Jeff to really come along and blow the lid off of ventriloquism again. And the reason he did that was his characters, his creativity. They're not your typical ventriloquist characters. I mean, yeah, they have the moving mouth, but I mean, I just feel that for such a long time, you would see so many people doing the same routines other people were doing over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Kind of like when you buy a magic trick and it comes with a certain pattern, everybody does the same pattern. Unless you can come up, do the same trick but come up with your own pattern or your own spin on it, then, you're just following, you're just a sheep, you're just following everybody else.
I agree.
And for so many years, I remember seeing people, do Bill Bowley's entire routine or Perkin's entire routine or stuff from Winchell was doing, and I'm like, I kind of feel like that's where ventriloquism kind of stalled out for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And but Jeff has breathed new life, and I'm excited to see some of these young kids in the junior division at the convention being very creative with some of their stuff. And I just honestly think that the creativity, thinking outside the box, being goofy, and not the standard. So Johnny, how'd you like school today? Closed.
Yeah.
Those kind of jokes are passé, and we need to keep up with what's current.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Well, Mike Palma, thank you so much for your time today. I'm really excited to see what you come up with next and where you go with it and what you keep doing with your figures. It's really incredible. I really like creative minds like you. Thank you so much.
Well, Matt Bailey, thank you so much for having me on, my friend.
My thanks again to Mike. I always love learning new things about my friends. Now, we got to talk about tomorrow. I believe there is an exception to every rule. I want to be clear about this. Tomorrow, I am honored. I really am. I'm honored to present my interview with Bruce Williams and Terry Rhee. I've been waiting for this, and I put them on tomorrow because I figured they're the perfect non-vent edition, and they lead a little bit by example of what we talked about today with Mike. They perform as the Indian and the White Guy, and Steve Hall of Steve Hall and Shotgun Red, while we were in Nashville, Steve introduced me to their work, and I fell in love with their dynamic instantly. Now, however, as their name suggests, the Indian and the White Guy, they are the opposite of politically correct. Tomorrow will include F-word bleeps, Cosby jokes, and explicit tags. But, like I keep saying, I believe they are the exception to my effort to stay squeaky clean on this program. Because, for all their blue humor, they are not filthy or foul with no reason. And that is exactly what we discuss. So I'm actually glad that Williams and Rhee really do kind of teach by example tomorrow. Plus, and I love this, they surprised me with their podcast producer, Dana Williams of the Grammy-winning band Diamond Rio. Like I said last week, I'm interviewing a Grand Ole Opry member on Talk for Two, and y'all know I'm excited about this. I didn't think we'd do this ever. But once again, be forewarned, strong language and suggestive jokes abound on the one I'm going to post tomorrow. So don't listen if it violates your sensitivities. But, like I said, that's tomorrow. Got a whole nother day ahead. In the meantime, head over to talk4spellout2.com for even more Talk for Two. Check out some of the awesome stuff we have for you in the Talk Shop. We are now shipping our new DVD, Ventriloquism for Comedy Clubs. That's me and Pete Michaels. If you want to work comedy clubs as an event, get this. I mean, Pete, that's like all he does is comedy clubs and corporates, and we kind of compare the two. So you get a little bit of stuff about corporate in there as well. and it's really sold great at Van Haven. I'm very, very thankful for doing some sales at Van Haven, and we are taking orders for our very first official podcast T-shirt. You guys want to wear and tell the world that you talk for two, please go ahead and order that. They are just $35. I got to say about the website, anything you order, I've done the price so that shipping is included. I'm not a metrics guy. I'm not a send it first class, send it this mail kind of thing. I just include that in the price when I charge for a product. So everything is on there is flat. You don't need to pay a sales tax unless you are in the state of Pennsylvania. So everything is just flat, what I say on the site. That it is. So the T-shirts are $35, and so is Pete Michaels' DVD. All right, and of course we link through to Axtel Expressions, one of our season sponsors, and the Sit Stand. Of course, you know Steve Axtel creates some of the coolest characters available. And I want to give a thank you to our season sponsors, the Tangent Bound Network. They are our servers, and the reason that every single episode is available on talk4, spell out 2.com, and that's our website. That is our mothership. That's where you can contact us. We have a form on there, or you can reach out by emailing talkfor2cast, TALKFORTWOcast at gmail.com. By the way, the website's the only one with the number because somebody else has FOR, so it's number 4 is the only thing with the website, all right? And find our group or like us on Facebook by searching for Talk for Two. Tweet us and about us using @ and hashtag Talk42. Signing off for Talk for Two, I'm Matt Bailey, reminding all you vents out there to keep talking for two.